Well, Mark, thank you so much for bringing that reflection, how great it is to see the incredible way that the Holy Spirit transforms through power. And we've got a great opportunity now to hear some of that in actual practice. Ben's going to tell us a little bit about how that transformation has taken shape in his life. So, Ben, do you want to tell us, first of all, you're local, you're from our Manor congregation. What do you do 9 to 5, Monday to Friday?
It's certainly not 9 to 5. Anyone who's a teacher knows it's definitely not 9 to 5. But I'm a primary school teacher. I live locally. I've lived around the Wickham area my entire life. Because, it's my home is where the heart is. I've got family and friends and church around here. But I'm a teacher and been teaching at the same school for 16 years now.
Wow.
Rather long time. A lot more grey hairs than when I started. Slightly more achy. It takes me a bit longer to recover. But, and I go to Manor Farm, have been for the last 4 years or so. Right. And I lead worship there.
Right.
As well.
And we're very lucky to have you. Some lovely comments this morning about your worship, you guys, so we are indeed very blessed. Tell me, though, about your childhood and about your Christian faith. Was that a part of life growing up for you?
Not so much, no. I mean, my mother and father are two loving parents, and I've had every opportunity in life has come from them. They helped me with my car, my university, with my first house, like everything came from them. But it was a love-filled childhood, but not a faith-filled childhood. For most of my childhood. Yeah. Okay.
And so how did you get started going to church then? What happened?
So I always felt a bit like a nomad, especially once I hit secondary school. I didn't really settle in anywhere. On the bus on the way to school, I used to sit with the sixth formers like I was like their mascot or something. Because I didn't, and I was very short, even shorter then. So they were like, oh, little Ben. I wanted to belong somewhere, and I never really felt like I belonged. I always felt like I could flit from group to group and I could get on with everyone, but didn't quite have that feeling of sort of like being part of something.
Yeah.
And there was this youth, what was Roots was called YAFS. I don't know what it stands for, but a lot of people were going. There's about 10 to 20 people per year group in that secondary age going along each week, and it was on Friday nights back then. Mm-hmm. And the people, I started sitting around year 10 with these people on the bus, and they kept talking. Like Monday and Tuesday they would talk about how good was YAFS last week, and then it was like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's on this week, and I was like, what is this, like this youth event that's going on each week? And I want to be part of that. So I actually started for something very started for really social reasons and wanting to belong, but actually when I went along it was different, because there was something different about these people. It was, and faith for me, like faith and religion are two very different things. And I had an idea of religion as to rules and what you have to do, whereas faith is a living relationship, and that's not something I'd ever really experienced. So I just started going along to church as well, and I saw people that I knew, and they were like singing and going like that while they were singing. I was like, whoa, that's really weird. So I was like freaked out almost, and I was like, but then I was like, oh no, these people are just lost in something. There is something else there. So I just started gradually going to church, going to the youth group. I don't think I had that kind of like eureka moment of the Spirit falling, but what I had was a continued kind of choice to go more and more and more into God and what he wanted. I remember 2002 Soul Survivor, going there, the big youth event, and speaking to people and sort of like really getting like just completely overwhelmed by how amazing it all was, and how all these people were joined together under a collective of worshipping one God. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want, and it inspired me. So I picked up a guitar and taught myself how to play the guitar because I wanted to play worship at church, and that's how that started. So
that is a great story. Thank you, amazing. And tell me a little bit about university, because I know that as young adults, sometimes faith and uni, that can be quite a difficult transition. Tell me a little bit about how that went for you.
Absolutely. So I was like, I'm going to university, and my parents were like, live at home and then you'll save lots of money. I was like, no, I need to spread my wings. So I went Northampton was only 74 miles away, so rather close. So I kind of went for the first year of university, having just gone to Kenya with the church as well, really strong experience. But I never really fully went to it. It was a very lukewarm commitment at university, as in I didn't join a Christian union or a church. I came back kind of like every 2 weeks. The people that were in the group kind of like I wasn't quite part of that group anymore because they were all not at university and staying around here.
Okay.
So it's very welcoming and loving, but it changed, and I was neither here nor there. And I just decided, I don't really know. And then I had a car crash in the summer term going back to university in my first year, so I hadn't really committed. So yeah, I got a bit of a kick up the backside with that, and I essentially I remember I was driving in the middle lane on the M40, and a lorry came in, left-hand drive lorry. I was in his blind spot, and he came and he basically hit the back left-hand side of my car. My car turned sideways, so I look up to my left, and there's a big lorry, and I look up to my right, and there's just road and motorway. Very fortunately, my car, as it went to flip over, got caught on like the grill of the front of his cab. And and he managed to get over onto the hard shoulder.
Wow.
But at that time, which was rather scary, the scariest moment of my life, I remember, I wasn't a calm prayer, but it was definitely screaming and shouting out to God. But at that moment, I was like, I went to God. I didn't just go, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
It was like, please, God, help me. And I was like, no, that faith is there. That faith is strong. So I then decided at university, that was like second year, I went back and I said, I'm joining a Christian union, I'm joining a church, and I am going for it. And I did. And my university years were really, really faith-filled, and I got lifelong friends from that.
Lovely, thank you. We're very glad that you're still here with us as well. Good to know. And tell us what happened then after university.
So after uni, you go first year of being a teacher. Anyone who knows a teacher or is a teacher themselves knows that first year of teaching is rather challenging, to say the least. 14-hour days plus all your Sunday as well. And I think I felt really inadequate at work. I had a very difficult boss to work for who really kind of expected high, which in some ways that's good, in other ways it's challenging. And I just started to see Monday to Friday, I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm trying to improve. And then I go to church, and it was Sunday evening back then. I used to go to what's now Connect, what was HTPM back in the day. And I used to go there, and I was doing the worship as well, and involved with that, but it became a religion and not a faith. All of that living relationship thing that had been the hallmarks of my faith became kind of secondary, and it became, now I've got to improve with this with work, and now I've got to improve with this with church. So I've got to improve, and I've got to improve. And essentially, I decided to step away from church. I said, I started off saying I don't want to do worship anymore. I'm not sure I felt like a hypocrite. I don't really believe this, can't stand up and do it. And then that was it. I just went away completely, decided to turn my back on church. And I didn't turn my back on living a good life or trying to, all of those Christian values that were instilled in me by my parents and by church, but certainly that living relationship with God and through the Spirit was like, nah, not for me anymore.
And you had some tough times after that, didn't you?
Yeah, so it's no surprise that when you try and go alone without God, having been alone without God, then you go to God, and then you kind of reject him again, that things go a little bit south at some point. But I then decided to, I focused on life and work and things, and I met someone at my school, and it was a bit of a whirlwind romance, and just because of circumstances where she lived quite far away, she started living with me essentially after a month. So it was very quick, very intense, and I proposed after 5.5 months. So that's rather quick, and not necessarily bad. I know there's lots of people I know there's people in the church who proposed on like the second date, and that's happened, but
that would be my husband,
after, but we got married, and the marriage was what it was, but very sadly it kind of it started to go a bit downhill, and my wife became quite out of respect for her, I don't want to talk too much.
No, that's fine.
But it wasn't a healthy relationship, and arguments weren't healthy, and very much a survivor of that type of a relationship. And it got to a crescendo where we just grew apart further and further. And sadly, she then sought comfort in with someone else at work, who I was line manager for. So my
really tough
kind of life kind of fell apart quite a bit. With that, and nothing can prepare you for it, because I think we all have roads that we think we will travel, and quite often we deviate from those roads, but you get back on it. But this was a complete closing of the road, end of that relationship, end of that house, end of the relationship with her parents and her family that had been cultivated and her friends. So it was an entire change. And then I was going to home and then work. And then at work, obviously, because she was there and he was there as well for a while, it was quite a challenge. Difficult, yeah. And I then moved. We had to share the house, so I moved in with my nan because I was too ashamed to live at mum and dad's. Like I'd somehow. Sorry.
That's all right. Take your time. Take your time.
So like I'd somehow let them down.
Yeah.
And so I was a very angry person. I was a very broken person, and that's where it got to about 4 or 5 years ago.
Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and honest. And obviously we can see now that you're fully committed to church, and there's something about that power that transforms that's brought you to this point today where you're willing to share your story with us like this. Tell us how that happened.
Once a year, Darren Bignell, who's part of the church, would have a birthday party. Shout out, he calls it Big Stock. It's very fun. We take some music, take instruments along, we play and we sing. And I went along year after year to that. And those of you who know Jo Preston know that when she talks to you, she cuts right into what's really going on with you. And we used to have once a year, when I was at church, when I wasn't at church, we would chat once a year, and that would be it. I wouldn't see her again pretty much for another year. But that year, I kind of went along and kind of unloaded everything that had happened. And she was like, right, you need to come over to Phil and I's house. We're welcome any time. I was like, that's the thing people say, but anyone who knows Jo and Phil know they mean it. And I started going there, and they were like, you need to get back to church, you need to go back to church. I was like, okay, right. And I'd started listening to a bit of worship music just on my own. I hadn't quite prayed, didn't pray for quite a few years, but I started kind of like just dipping the toes back into, so to speak. And then one Sunday I decided to go back to church, but instead of going to Holy Connect, I went to Manor Farm. And I walked in, and there were so many people there that I knew. And that I loved. And there were people, I didn't even know they were at the church, that were at that congregation, because that kind of part of my life I'd kind of put to the side. And even though I kept up a lot of those relationships with a lot of the people, we didn't talk about church. They never forced me out because I didn't go to church. I was still Ben and still their friend. But the sermon that day was on the prodigal son returning, but it was more just, it's good to be emotional about it like this, because it was God welcoming me back. I mean, he was there the whole time. I just decided to turn my back. But eventually I just turned myself back around and made a decision that faith is more than a feeling. And I'm a very feelings-led person, as people who know me really well could attest to. But to try and look beyond a fleeting emotional feeling, but actually go for what you believe and what you go for. And that lukewarmness that I'd gone with wasn't right anymore, and just decided I'm going to go back for worship, and I'm going to go back, I'm going to try and pray, and no matter what happens in my feelings, I'm going to keep that discipline of trying to go. So that's the good part of religion, is the discipline of coming on, but keeping that, wanting that relationship and that faith with God.
Yeah, thank you so much. A little bit earlier on, Mark was talking about ripple effects. And this, when I listened to your story, this is, again, those ripple effects that are carrying on over the years through church family, through the Prestons, through the people that have supported you and have continued to support you and encourage you and equip you. And I haven't prepared you for this, so I hope you don't mind me asking that question. Mark was talking about pairs of words earlier on. And I wonder if you've got a pair of words to describe your before and after, just to finish with.
Oh, crikey, that has put me on the spot.
I'm really sorry.
Probably just broken, restored.
Nice.
I think that's what it would be.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, now, I mean, the struggles that I had back when I got back from university with faith are still there at times, but the difference is that when you accept that you're restored and you accept that gift of grace, you have to accept to love yourself. And I've had to, I'm in a relationship with someone now who has had to teach me that, because I was so broken. And she's had to work through that with me, a lot of my friends, and had to put up with that. And basically, as I get pieced back together a little bit, but I don't then get smashed back down. Things hit you, but it doesn't break you again. So broken but no more broken kind of thing.
I love that. Thank you so much.
No worries.
Ben, we are so grateful for your honesty and for your vulnerability this morning. Thank you for sharing your story. It's the first time that I've heard a lot of that as well, so I'm really grateful to you. We all are really grateful. And if there's anything in Ben's story that's particularly made you think this morning, I want to know about that power that transforms. I want to know what it's like to feel broken then restored. I want to know who Jesus is and the change that Jesus can make in my life. Then please do pop a little comment in and somebody will pray with you. We're happy to meet up and chat. You can email into the church office with any questions you have, and we're just really grateful. Can I pray for you, Ben?
Absolutely,
and pray for us? And then we're going to worship again this morning.